Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're excited that you're here. We're going to have a wonderful show, really important stuff that we are covering. And most importantly, our democracy is like sinking into authoritarianism. So we're glad you're here with us to just, have a safe space and feel better about what's happening. But let's get into it. What we're going to cover today, most excited about this week. We are just 2 days away from Sine Die, so the finale of the Kentucky General Assembly session 2025. It's just 2 days away, depending on when you're listening to this. If you didn't listen to this until Saturday, then it's over. But if you're listening to this live Wednesday or maybe early Thursday, they've got a couple days of chaos that they could be bringing us right now here in Kentucky. So we're going to talk about a little bit of that. Then we've got an amazing guest joining us this week. Excited to be joined by the Kentucky Director of Planned Parenthood Alliance Advocates. I believe that she was in Frankfurt today or has been in Frankfurt through this session. They're always active in the General Assembly, so we'll get her update on what's happening in Frankfurt for choice, for reproductive health care. Really should be a heck of a show, and we're damn glad that you've joined us. But before we launch into it, want to check and make sure that you are ready to help create a more compassionate Commonwealth. It is crystal clear that we're going to build more long-term power building, going to need more long-term power building to create better policies, better political outcomes in Kentucky. We hope you'll support Progress Kentucky in our campaign to make that happen. Let us know how you want to help, right? If you're watching now, that's helpful. Spread the word, that's helpful. Share the show, that's helpful. But we've launched 3 committees recently. One is focused on the legislature. Not much left to do on that one with the 2 days in the session. We got one that's focused on fighting back against Trump and the billionaire backing Doge bros that are holding our federal agencies hostage. We want to make sure that we hold our representatives accountable. So that is a great place to dip in if you're excited to help out, mobilizations, days of action, targeting our federal legislature, mostly focused in the central Kentucky area. So mostly focused on Andy Barr, but definitely interested in getting your support there. We got a survey that you can fill out to indicate your interest in getting engaged. And then also we're looking to get more engagement in rural communities as well. So if you've got connections in rural communities, if you're in a rural community and want to help out, raise your hand and let us know. So of course, the other way you can help out is just making a donation. Our costs are pretty minimal. We are an all volunteer crew, but we got to pay for our streaming platform. We got to pay for, our social media engagement efforts. We got some resources for sure that we could get covered by your support. So at any rate, whatever you can do, it all helps out, all adds up. We are on Act Blue. $10, $20, $200, whatever you can do is appreciated. So now let's check in with our co-host. Let us know who you are, where you are, what are you protesting today? And you on the internet, we want to hear what you're fired up about. What are you paying attention to? There's so much to pick from. And, blink, and there's a new news story about things you should be fired up and opposed to. But I'm going to keep it focused on Frankfurt. I'm Aaron. I'm coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky. My sign says you can't drink money. Reject SB 89. That's, of course, the dirty water bill that I think we're going to touch on later. But yeah, turning now to my wonderful, amazing co-host. Kimberly, are you there?
I sure am, Aaron. How are you today?
Woo! Yeah, hanging in there. Hanging in there.
Hanging on by a string, I tell you. I'm coming to you live from Louisville, Kentucky, Jefferson County, the largest county in the Commonwealth. And my protest sign says today, I'm tired of the bull. SH. Some kind of little mark. Okay, like an @ sign or something, and the T. I'm tired of it. I am tired of everything. I can't even keep up with what's going on nationally. It is a stretch to try to keep up with what's going on at our state level and also at my own local level. It is too much. It's too much. And too many people are now trying to come on over to the independent side. You heard about Simone Sanders on MSNBC. She was so upset with Chuck Schumer and him falling prey to the Trumpism that on air she made the commitment that she's turning over to the independent party. So it's a lot going on, but I'm tired of the bull SHT.
Yeah, I feel that for sure. Yeah, and so I think we're gonna cover some news, cover some stories. Kimberly, thanks so much for being here. I want to just spend a little bit of time talking about kind of where we are at in our kind of federal fight. I think that's a good one to start off with. We've got we're an indivisible organization, right? So we're a part of the Indivisible Project, which is awesome. And, they're helping, give us great information and giving us great opportunities to get engaged and take action and hold our federal lawmakers to account. And I just want to, the saga of Andy Barr, right? So if you aren't terribly familiar with Andy Barr, this is probably the wrong show for you. He represents the 6th district of Kentucky, based in Lexington, but has like 19 other or 18 other counties around it. And he's been a bit of an empty suit in Congress, if we're being honest. He's been all about the Financial Services Committee. He's all about big banks, Big Bank Barr, I like to call him. But what's been interesting is like so many of these Republicans, people want to hold him accountable. They want to hear his position on, Trump and Musk and Doge and all the stuff that's happening, the kind of evisceration of our federal agencies, the fact that DOE, Department of Education, is, having its staffing cut in half, the fact that Medicare is kind of under the crosshairs, and the kind of budget numbers that they are forcing the House Republicans to support would mean billions of dollars of cuts from Medicaid, which is of course really important in Kentucky, which is, largely a poor state, has a lot of folks who, kids born, and birth are covered on Medicare. A lot of older folks, of course, get their health care for it. We had a great interview with Jason Bailey from the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy a few episodes back. Find that one if you want to kind of the rundown of how important Medicare and Medicaid is for our state. But that people want to hold our federal lawmakers accountable for that. And Andy Barr had not held a public town hall. So a wonderful group, Gathering for Democracy, which we and coordinate with, put together a people's town hall. So that happened on Saturday. Annabel had pulled up the image really quickly, but it was 1,000 people showed up. 800 people, fit in that room. It was to capacity, plus people, on the edges, and, couldn't even get inside the theater. It was really phenomenal. Andy Barr, of course, did not show up. They asked him a number of times to come. He said no. He didn't trust it. He thought it was going to be like a bunch of people screaming at him and grandstanding, and then doubled down after he saw the coverage, said that people were paid to be there. So these were paid protesters. Lighting Soros's money on fire was what he said, which, oh my God, how infuriating, right? Like, if you're just a constituent who's concerned about this, like, wholesale, slashing of government, that is like, to say they're just paid to be there and that you're, part of some Soros effort is, I think, incredibly disrespectful to what, is I think I'm biased, but I think a very legitimate perspective, right? So he's clearly, we figured it out on Wednesday of last week, right? So we did our protest outside his policy talk at the Lexington Chamber of Commerce, right? So they did a policy luncheon. You had to pay $80 to get inside. I didn't have that money, so I was outside along with a few hundred of my friends, holding signs up, urging Andy Barr to pick a side, whether it's Trump or us, Musk or us. He clearly picked Musk. He clearly picked Trump. He is all in on the Trump-Musk agenda. He then did, in fact, ultimately hold a teletown hall where, I think he screened a lot of the questions, but some slipped through, where he had, his like GOP talking points down and talked about how what Trump and Musk were doing was like the best thing ever, and we had so much wasteful spending, and of course trotted out the stuff that's totally been debunked about wasteful spending that that Musk has found with his Doge Bros. Like they're turning mice transgender. Well, that's not actually true, and that's not what the research was. But why let the facts get in the way of a good story? Trans operas in Africa, all sorts of like crazy stuff that they, said, oh, look at this, we're saving so much money, and you add it all up and it's, nothing. And also the details were wrong. So really just kind of disappointing that he's like going down that road. He also put out a picture on social media of him with one of the Teslas on the White House lawn, talking about how awesome these cars are and how awesome Musk is. And it's a little like gross, right? I think it's a little gross that he's like stooping so low to like, yeah, I think EVs are cool, but like I think the fact that they're selling them on the White House lawn is a little disgusting and is corrupt. But Andy Barr is doing something, right? And Kimberly, I don't know, you're following politics, you know what's happening. It seems pretty clear that Andy Barr, who was always kind of reasonable-ish, is now all in with Trump and Musk, mostly for one reason. What do you think that reason is, Kimberly?
Money.
Yeah, it's money. I mean, Trump and Musk have said very clearly Musk is going to fund opponents if you don't go along, right? So they will try to primary you if you don't go along. But, Andy Barr is not actually concerned about the 6th district primary. He's concerned about the Kentucky Senate primary. He wants to be the next Mitch McConnell. He wants to be in that Senate seat forever. So he is like testing the waters. He's trying to, I think, block out any opponents. Like he wants to be to as far to the right as humanly possible, as much on Trump's tip as humanly possible. So Musk, funds him to win that, to run and hopefully win that primary. I know Dan Cameron's also announced, but we'll see what happens in that primary. But it's clear that Andy Barr has just supplicated himself before Trump and Musk to get their endorsement, to get their support, to get their money, and then ideally get the nomination. I don't know. Kimberly, are you watching? What do you think about what's happening in that?
Well, I just want to say that what was it? Night before last? Is that when Andy Barr did his town hall over the phone?
Yeah, teletown hall. Yep.
Since he had one and he didn't show up, so he did it over the phone. And just being on that call, I was like a spy, right? Getting all the info. I mean, he is truly a Trumpster because he was so effective. The talking points are the same across the board. They are marching in step. And there were different people in the queue to ask questions, things of that nature. And, you still hear these people, and it hurt my heart. It pierced my heart when they're like, I voted for Trump and I think he's doing a good job. But you're asking Andy Barr about your Social Security. You voted for Trump. You think he's doing a great job, and Elon Musk, but you're concerned about if farmers are still going to be able to get paid correctly. So I do believe it's a cult. And when people are in cults, I was a little girl back in the day, and I remember seeing on TV that congressman that went to that island or whatever with Jim Jones, where everybody drank the Kool-Aid, and he was, he passed as well over there. So when someone is involved in a cult, there's nothing that you can say until it affects them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that Andy Barr has joined the cult willingly of his own, free will, because he was, he thinks it's politically advantageous, for what he wants to accomplish. The rest of them, though, it's not just Andy Barr. We've also seen a lot of protests against James Comer. This is where our friends at Four Rivers Indivisible found some chicken suits, chicken costumes, and are doing, I think, chicken comer protests weekly. Which this one has been interesting because he also has absolutely doubled down. So Jamie Comer is not at all interested in hearing their perspective. And he has said, quote, his representative said, quote, Congressman Comer does not plan on holding therapy sessions for left-wing activists suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. Of course, Jamie Comer is a pretty powerful member of Congress. He's on the Oversight Committee, chairs the Oversight Committee, and I think what he should be doing and spending his time on is not, talking down and dismissing legitimate concerns of his constituents. I think he should be instead, investigating wholly inadequate security practices from the SecDef and others, right? So clearly that's what he should be spending his time on, is just the woeful, inadequate, and just dangerous incompetence of the current leadership in the White House in terms of national security and the Yemen attack, the Houthi attack that they've clearly been called out for. So, if there was any sort of justice in the world, he'd be pursuing that. I don't think that's going to be happening. Also, Brett Guthrie, I believe there was a kind of another empty chair town hall held for him in Bowling Green. Hundreds of folks came out for that effort. And, again, showing very clearly the constituents are concerned about what's happening in Washington, D.C., which they should be. This is clearly authoritarianism is on the march right now. And this is a very historic time. And I think town halls are great, but major mobilizations are needed. We're going to need to get into the streets. We're looking at doing something for April 5th. A lot of folks are. The Hands Off effort with Move On, Indivisible, lots of other organizations, 5051, all kind of coming together across the country to say that we reject what is happening in Washington, D.C., and we demand rational and reasonable governments again that respect our democracy. So it's happening. Our federal representatives, I think, are good targets. I know that Morgan McGarvey's done a lot of work to I think give voice to that opposition. Kim, you there in Louisville, what do you see that that he's been up to, and how is it going? Kimberly,
I didn't quite hear the end of what you said.
Oh, how has Morgan McGarvey, Congressman McGarvey, been handling the efforts and kind of giving voice to the concern of the opposition that I was just talking about?
He's very, very vocal. There's footage of him actually on the floor speaking to the entire House on the Hill in D.C. He comes back, brings the information back to us. There was a rally that was set up by his office here in Louisville as far as the Medicaid is concerned. A lot of people turned out for that as well. He's been consistently meeting with people, having town halls over the phone, having town halls all over our District 3, which he is the congressman of, and just still making sure that he's staying extremely connected to his constituency, and also making sure that he's staying connected with the communication of what's actually going on in Washington to bring that information back to us. So he is working overtime. When I get his memo on Mondays of everything he did the week before, I'm exhausted just reading it, because I'm like, Morgan, what vitamins are you taking? Tell us, please. Well, does he sleep?
It's nice to have that you have that. It's great that you have that. He is, of course, the only Democrat in the entire Kentucky delegation. So, I feel like he's kind of my congressman too, even though I don't get the vote for him, because Andy Barr has proven himself to be not representative of my views whatsoever. So, hey, so we've got our guest with us. I want to turn now to Frankfurt, talking about what's happening in DC and the importance of getting on the streets to fight it. But there's things we can fight closer to home as well. Obviously, the General Assembly has given us just a a fat stack of bad bills, and folks have been super active making phone calls, using that legislative comment line, and we've seen a response to some degree. Some bad bills have been blocked, but one thing we haven't had a chance to cover much during the session is what's happening with reproductive health care. So we've brought on the most, I think, just been in the fight for the longest time here in Kentucky and has led the fight on all the bad bills and has been just a champion and just a stalwart speaker of truth on this issue. So welcome from Planned Parenthood, Tamarra Wieder, whose name I always get wrong, but I still love her just passionately for what she does for our state and our Commonwealth. So Tam, thank you so much for joining us. What's the state? How are things going on reproductive health care in Frankfort right now?
Well, I wish I could say it was a better place for reproductive health. We are seeing a new tactic on driving anti-abortion bills. They are rebranding it with what they're calling clarification of abortion laws in Kentucky, but unfortunately, it does not clarify anything and actually can make our situation worse, which is really troubling. And that is with House Bill 90. And so we are really thankful for our wonderful governor, Governor Beshear, for vetoing House Bill 90 just last night. But we know that we are going into the override tomorrow, and we are hoping, really hoping that by some miracle they won't override his veto. But this is Kentucky, and the legislature is likely going to override and put into play more restrictions on our providers and put into place more legal language that is going to make it harder to access care in Kentucky.
Yeah. So it seemed like this was a bill they brought up. They said, oh, no, we're just going to clarify things, make it better for healthcare providers. But what you're saying is that was disingenuous, perhaps. And in fact, this bill makes things more challenging for healthcare providers to figure out what the heck they're able to do and what they're legally able to do.
Exactly. That is the goal of this bill, and what we're seeing nationwide. It's a strategy to make it harder for doctors to provide care in emergency situations. And national organizations like the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists have really come out against what is in House Bill 90, the language that's used, this new term, maternal fetal separation. It is junk science. It is not a medical term. And actually what is behind it is dictates on what you can perform, not the best practices, which would be in most cases a D&C or dilation and curettage, but more risky procedures like a C-section or induction of labor. And what we actually saw from a report today from Louisville Public Media, hysterectomies. And so this is really not a place that we want to see our patients get put into. It's also a murkier legal landscape that takes away provider protections and puts the decision basis on when an abortion can happen in the hands of the court. So it's taking the provider's decision-making away from them and putting it in the hands of the court, not the experts in this decision, but the courts, which we have seen play out in places like Texas. The legalese in this is very similar to Texas's abortion landscape. And what we have seen play out there is abortions have been denied. And most notably with Kate Cox and Amanda Zorowski. And even in life-threatening and life-saving cases, which is the language that they put in this bill, abortions were denied by the courts, even though the provider petitioned to have an abortion for their patient. And so it really ties the hands of the providers and puts a chilling impact on provider hospital systems in providing this emergency care. So in an already confusing landscape, they're adding confusing language, they're adding more legal restrictions, and they're putting in language that makes it even more murky on when they can act and enshrines it into code with this life-saving and life-threatening language that is also in Texas. So they're mirroring language in states that are even harder to access care and where they've unfortunately seen patient mortality where we have not yet. So I'm just really nervous about what this is going to mean for the state of Kentucky.
Kimberly, I know this is an issue you care passionately about, so I'll turn to you for a question from Tam.
Do you think, with the climate of everything that's going on nationally as well as in Frankfurt, do you think there's going to come a day when legalized abortions will come back to our state?
I really hope so. I think that it's needed. We really need to see abortion healthcare return. We do have the Mary Poe case that is making its way through the courts right now, and it is in amazing hands with the ACLU of Kentucky. I know that it's currently in the Louisville District Courts, and I think that we have a good chance at maybe reversing the trigger ban and parts of, if not all of, the omnibus anti-abortion bill from 2022, which would hopefully then, if House Bill 90, which I think will go into effect, be pulled back. So I do hope that we'll see some remedy with the Mary Poe case that is currently moving. I really hope, too, that legislators stop playing these political games with our bodies and our healthcare. I mean, across the board, not just with abortion care, but with gender affirming care, with our ability to talk to our providers across the board. I mean, it was really telling, when one of the freshman legislators, Representative Joshua Watkins, said that the most he's heard from his constituents have been about women and trans kids, and that's what he is constantly faced with, their humanity and their lives. And it just really struck me that for a freshman legislator you're in Frankfurt now, and that is what you are constantly dealing with, us having to fight for our lives and our humanity. And that's what Frankfurt is.
It just seems so tragic that, they're choosing to interject themselves into a place that really should be between, just a human and their doctor, and figuring out what is right for your healthcare needs. Why are politicians so bound and determined to interject themselves into these spaces? And, I just keep, wishing, hoping, I don't know, oh, right, there was a statewide referendum and we asked people, do you want a constitutional protection for abortion care? And the people said, yeah, we want that. We want that. Undeniable what they voted for. But because the way they wrote it, and because the purpose that really that was serving, which was not about protecting or giving an actual option for reproductive health care, but instead, I think just looking to drive turnout for Rand Paul's reelection, it just doesn't matter. It's absolutely indisputable that there was a statewide referendum that our side won. That doesn't seem to be of any value whatsoever for these jokers.
I think that's also why we're seeing bills like this that are flipping the narrative a bit, where they're like, oh, but we're going to clarify abortion restrictions. We're going to make it more accessible for people in crisis. And so they're trying to change their optics a bit here. I mean, it's really notable that Right to Life lost over half of the candidates seeking office that they would normally get, seeking their endorsements. Over half of those who normally sought them declined to seek their endorsement. I mean, that is huge for Right to Life, who normally had 88 endorsements. I think 40 were publicly seeking their endorsements. And that's huge. And for them to then hop on a bill to try and change the narrative that, oh, we're going to make abortion access. Actually, no, they didn't use the word abortion. They're trying to erase the word abortion. They're trying to say that abortion is never necessary, but that you should have access to care in an emergency situation. They were trying to change the optics on it because they needed it. They needed a rebrand because they're unpopular with the general populace here. They don't have Kentuckians behind them with their branding. Kentuckians want more access to care. They want people who are in crisis from, either an emergency need, for rape and incest, for those who need care for abortion for whatever reason. Kentuckians do support that too. They have a branding problem. And I think that was where they were going forward with this bill. And we are seeing that play out, that there is an optical narrative component to this, that they needed a win here. And we see that playing out across the country, that there are other bills like this that are mirroring what Kentucky did to change that that optics problem where abortion is a winning issue for the right.
Well, I'll argue it's maybe not a branding problem. It's just they're wrong, and the public thinks they're wrong. And when it's put out clearly, the public wants to be on the side of giving women options, giving healthcare options to those who need it, right? Or who just want it, right? Like against abortion, don't have one. It's that easy. I don't want to just traffic in bumper stickers, but I do think it's critically important that people understand what's going on, because they're lying. They're like, oh no, this bill, we're just clarifying it. We're making it easier for healthcare providers to give people in crisis this treatment. That's what they're saying. But then the healthcare providers are saying, actually, no, this makes it harder, right? So it's like, oh, who are you going to believe? The politician who's speaking for some theoretical healthcare provider, or the actual healthcare institution, the doctors' institutions and whatnot. It seems like they're lying. I'm a guy.
No, and it's, I think, really suspect. I mean, in the committee hearing, which they called at the 11th hour, one of the last days of session before the veto period, there was, they were honest. They didn't talk to any lawyers. They didn't talk to any hospital administrators. They wanted to push this. And when some amendments got tacked to it, they moved it to a hearing at 7:49 at night in the Senate after the Senate had adjourned. So they couldn't have any discussion or debate on it on the floor with amendments. If this bill was as good, why couldn't it stand alone? Why couldn't we have discussion? Why couldn't we bring in experts? It was really telling that over 85 medical professionals signed a letter within a weekend because it was so confusing and egregious to them. This was not a pathway forward for providers to give care.
Yeah, it's just I don't know, it's astounding. It's disappointing. I just want to say, again, how much we appreciate your leadership. Making your way into that hall of lies and opposition, and but and I think you look at the federal landscape, it's a little disheartening as well. I think people saw okay, there's a national election. We'll make sure that we, defend it, and, didn't turn out that way at all. Although, I don't think it was super clear in the eyes of the kind of electorate that made the decision that they were voting for or against. I think Trump is really good at also lying to people about what he stands for. And so the general kind of thought in a lot of the folks who showed up to the polls and kind of swung this election was that he wouldn't be bad for abortion care, but it seems like, he of course put in a SCOTUS that was pretty bad. So I don't know, I heard Kimberly's question earlier about what are the prospects for how do we how do we make things better here? And I do feel like it's smart education. We've got to make sure people understand what's at stake with each and every election. The fact that, they don't want right to life's endorsement is, as you say, very telling. So how do we get it so they want your endorsement, Tam? What do we need to do about that one?
Well, that's not necessarily my problem. I find that, each year more and more legislators are seeking our endorsement. We had one of our biggest endorsement for the panels that we had released ever from this last cycle. And it was really exciting to do the work within the community. And we were really excited to see out, actually, I think in your area, Representative Adam Moore flip. And there's just a lot of work to do. We need to make sure that candidates feel supported, that they have the support on the doors, they have the support in the communities to get the work done, to get their message out, and that we are able to also support them in Frankfort once they're there with messaging and constant, it gets lonely in Frankfort. There is a lot of negative bills moving, and it weighs on people, especially the legislators who've been there a long time. So it's making sure that they have that ability to stay and keep turning out new people to run for office. I mean, Kentucky has a lot of promise, but we have to get the that infrastructure and that investment in our state so that we can continue to grow. One of the things that I really learned on the No on 2 campaign is that it doesn't take that much to do a lot, but you just need that support to get going, and you need that investment. And Planned Parenthood, sometimes people think of us as having a lot of money and being able to do a lot, but unfortunately, when you're a small affiliate, you don't really have that. That nest egg. So it's making sure that those organizations that are here in the state, the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, Kentucky Health Justice Network, the Fairness Campaign, that you also support us, because we need to be able to continue to support the candidates and the work that we're doing in this really hostile landscape, because it is getting harder and harder to continue to do our work and to make sure that our doors stay open, our work continues, and so that we can support the candidates as well.
Well,
I have a thought.
Yes, let's hear it.
Because both you all forgot all about I was here. I'm not saying any names, but initials will work, AV. Anyway, let me say this. I have like this really big thought, and Aaron is probably over there saying, "Oh my God, it's dangerous when Kimberly starts thinking." But this is but no, this has really been on my mind for quite some time. What a lot of the challenges are is misplaced religion and being so-called Christian. This is so convoluted. It's so messed up, mixed up, chaos, however you want to put it, that a lot of people are guilted into not supporting abortions and reproductive health. Now, myself, I believe in taking care of people, whatever that may mean, to take care of someone. And I claim that I'm a Christian, and I am. But I think a lot of people on the other side, the Andy Barrs, the Trumps, so on and so forth, I think that they get these things to go through how they want it to do because it's misplaced religion. And there's a lot of guilt on we as Christians that it's wrong. Don't even think about it. I'm to the effect like, I don't think it's wrong, but if someone came to me, it wouldn't be the first thing out of my mouth as an abortion, right? However, if my friend wanted to have an abortion and that's what they feel strongly with, I'm going to be right there for them, sitting in the waiting room, going through the line, whatever the case may be. I'm going to be there for them and support them, because one of my very dear friends, her sister died many, many years ago from what you want to call a back alley abortion. So ever since that time, I believe that a woman should have the right to do what they want to do with their bodies. And we all got to answer to somebody in the afterlife. So I don't think it's wrong, but I think a lot of people are guilted into not supporting it or vilifying those that believe in pro-choice. What do you think about that?
No, I do get a lot of the religion thrown at me. And actually, former Representative Melinda Prunty came up to me in the Capitol, actually the day of the House Bill 90 debate, with a little manila folder with my name on it, where I'm Jewish. And she tried to convert me to being a pro-life Jew. And she wanted me to take the manila folder with all this information. And, for me, that I did not take the folder. But in my faith, I'm Reformed. I practice Reformed Judaism. We are very much of a pro-choice approach. We honor people's choices in reproductive rights. And in our tradition, we even have components where abortion may even be mandatory for different part. If I have a complication, if it's going to complicate my ability to survive, there are parts of the Torah that would support me having an abortion, but for her to come up as a Christian to tell me that how to practice my faith and try and convert me was not, in my opinion, a very Christian-like component. But I do deal with that, with people trying to tell me how to live my faith, how to live my truth. And I do think, religion is very personal, and how people believe. I never want to tell people what they should believe or how they should worship or how their faith makes them feel about abortion. That is very personal. And I'm not here to judge or compel you to change your beliefs. That is not for me. I do think that there is a lot of misinformation that is out there about abortion, how people who come to Planned Parenthood or talk to about abortion or in medical crisis. That is my job, to make sure that to dispel the misinformation about abortion. And I can be that person. I can help dispel the misinformation out there. And I do think that there has been a lot of gross mischaracterizations too about how Christians feel about abortion as well. I work with so many faith leaders from across the spectrum of Christianity, and the Western religions and even Eastern religions, and they support access to abortion. And I think that that's what's beautiful. Like, one thing that does unite us is that there is no one religion that is the be all end all on reproductive rights. And I think that that's really important to know.
Some of these people don't, I have a situation right now with some people that I know. And the young lady was 17 when she had her child. She already had a lot of mental health issues. Okay. And she wanted to, rip and run the streets and, not use protection, all these kind of things. And she had neglected and abused that little baby. He's he may be about 18 months now. And finally, the grandmother got temporary custody of the baby through CPS, Child Protective Services. And, it's a lot for her. And she's sacrificing a lot to have her grandchild. And when she first got him, maybe about 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, for the first 2 weeks, he just was fighting in his sleep. He just cried all the time. And, she would leave the baby 2, 3, 4 days with, people addicted to drugs and everything. And you just look back and you say, why didn't you give that baby to someone who wanted a baby? Or why didn't you get an abortion? And then I had to think to myself, where can she get an abortion if she wanted to?
Yeah. So people make choices. We want to make sure they have the full range of choices, that they make those choices based on their own faith and their own determination. But really, we want to make sure politicians are out of the exam room, because that's not where they belong. And, our politicians in Kentucky, they're like so low rent. They're not even lawyers. They don't even writing this stuff in a way that's useful. Of course, it probably is useful, because that's what they want to do, is like make things even murkier and even more challenging for healthcare professionals to navigate, and just get them to get out of the state altogether, I'm sure. So, Tam, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your perspective and your information. Congratulations on the veto. 2 days to fight to see if we can keep it held. I will just say, what is the point of a veto when it's just a simple majority to overturn it? Like, what? I'm just, come on, people.
I wanted to ask her, where is the closest place that Kentuckians could go if they wanted to have an abortion?
It depends where you live in the state. If you're in northern Kentucky, you can go to Ohio. If you're in western Kentucky, Carbondale and Illinois might be your closest option. If you're in Louisville, I think maybe northern Kentucky, or depending on availability, Chicago sometimes is the quickest to get in.
Options that make you travel and make you spend money and make you not convenient. So good information for sure. Tam, thanks again.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
I
All
love
right.
it when
So,
she's on. I just love it when she's on.
oh yeah, no. I'm always thrilled when we get a bit of her time. She just does such an amazing job, and she's so courageous. It is not easy work. All right, so we are going to get back to, I think, our kind of our state actions. We want to run through some bills. What's the state of play right now as we look into the next, kind of final 2 days of that veto override session. So, Kim, do you have them, or do you want me to walk through them, or how do we want to do this?
Yes, actually, I have it right here. Oops. Okay. I don't have it anymore.
What
I have
happened?
all the bills that our great governor has chose to vote, and then the ones that he vetoed. I had that
Awesome.
list. But you could go ahead and I'll chime in as I try to find it really quickly.
Okay, so he's been active, as we heard. The abortion bill, he vetoed that one. And then I think just recently also he vetoed SB 89. So this is the water pollution. This is, the bill that the coal industry wanted passed to weaken the amount of water pollution protections there were in our state. Really problematic for a lot of reasons, protecting, so many people rely on well water. This would remove that groundwater protections. That one we're very glad to see him veto. We're thrilled. This is a lot of groups, the environmental community, progressive community came together to oppose SB 89. So really thrilled that he vetoed that one. HB 4, I think, was the first one that he vetoed. This is the effort to kind of outlaw DEI programs, make sure that higher education remains firmly entrenched with white supremacy, and make DEI a bad name, bad word. And so he vetoed that one. And then the other one that I think he maybe did it right before the fairness dinner, but HB 495, which would protect conversion therapists and overturn the governor's end to conversion therapy in the Commonwealth. So this is a bad bill, and we're glad to see he vetoed it. Now it's helping protect gay kids from horrible quote unquote mental health treatment, bad therapy for sure. Glad to see he vetoed that one as well. So those are the ones that I'm most interested in defending, those vetoes, and that's going to take phone calls to do it for sure. Kimberly, any other bills you wanted to mention or weigh in on?
I did find that one particular article. So the laws is like I really like this one because a lot of people have instances where they have squatters, people staying in their properties, not invited, illegally, pretty much. But it was really hard to get these people out of your property. You would just think the police could come and just drag them out. But on House Bill 10, owners can request law enforcement to remove people unlawfully occupying their property under specific circumstances. Then I also saw this one. This is very close to my heart because back in the 90s, I had an emergency protective order on someone, and they came back and did some very egregious things to me. So I was really loving House Bill 38, which increases the penalties for those who violate protective orders. We've been needing that one for a very long time. So also, another one is June, Kentucky History Month. Okay, that's cool too. The other one that I was interested in that I really, really liked, that he signed into law was of course, on House Bill 184 to support economic growth. And then House Bill 306 supports job growth by allowing people who have graduated from fire protection engineering technology programs to qualify for licensures as a professional engineer. I like that one. And then he's also signed into law something that's dear to my heart because I've been training and working really hard to learn all of this AI stuff. And so our governor says that it's very important for like Senate Bill 4. It makes the Commonwealth Office of Technology responsible for AI standards. So it's so many of them here, but I just have to say it over and over again. We've got a very good governor. We really do. He's not just for Democrats, or he's for his constituency, period. Yeah. And if anybody says anything about him, those is fighting words. I'm just saying. Now that I know how to do AI, I control real good.
So then I just got word that he did veto, I think HB 695, which would put in work requirements for Medicaid, would limit the governor's ability to expand Medicaid. So that one is one that I thought he would veto, but it took him a minute. So that one is one where, again, HB 695, we'd want to try to uphold his veto by getting phone calls in to the legislature. We have got our call-in sheet here. It's linked in the comments. It'll be linked in the show notes. If you are listening to this Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, make phone calls to that legislative comment line. We'll keep the document updated, so you know what the facts are and what you should be telling them to veto or to oppose or not overturn the veto. And also, we've got a good bill that we'd like to get across the finish line. Adam Moore's got a bill that he's sponsored to make EpiPens more affordable through your healthcare system. So that one is, it still could pass. It's going to take a little bit of, kind of finagling, but it's a good bill, and we'd like to get him to pass it. It's HB 236, which would probably have to be added on to another bill because it hasn't had the necessary readings. But there's HB 421, which would make it easier for individuals to obtain colon cancer screenings. So those two could be wrapped together. That one's been had 2 readings, so that one can be voted on, and it's already passed the House. So at any rate, there's plenty of going on right now. These final 2 days, call the folks, 1-800-372-7181. Nicest folks. I think we have a graphic for that, don't we? Call these folks. They're wonderful. They are polite. They're going to work with you to get your information to the folks who need to hear it. So yeah, that's the call to action. Make sure you use that phone number and support the governor's vetoes. And some of the worst bills did not get passed by both houses, so that's exciting. There's still an opportunity, to limit the damage that this General Assembly has done so far. But yeah, any other things you want to mention, Kim?
I know yesterday our governor was up to vetoing 20 bills. Is it more today?
Yeah, there's definitely a couple more, or at least one more. So yeah, he's kept his veto pen warm, kept it active, and pretty excited to see him, standing. But I do think it's just outrageous. Like, he's the governor, he gets to veto the bills, and then they just get to use a simple majority to overturn a veto. Like, no, come on, like a 3/4 at least, keep it, sporting. But they do have a super duper majority, so they would still probably be able to overturn it, unfortunately.
I know, right? But maybe I'm not going to say maybe, the phone calls help. I don't want anybody to think like they do, my vote doesn't count because the electorate and, all of that kind of stuff. This is totally different. They do keep a log of who's calling. They keep a log of the emails. They keep a log of who's personally going to these offices. And the majority of the people, if they get enough people, then that person, that House representative or state senator, they have to change their vote because
what?
Okay, in a dream world, I mean,
hey, we're the kernels of truth, Kimberly.
I know, but I'm just saying how it's supposed to go.
Not the kernels of hope and pixie dust.
Oh, well, we got to have a little hope. Let's keep hope alive, right?
Hope is a process. We need to keep hope alive for sure. But
otherwise, I'm going to go crazy.
No. Here's what makes hope real is work, right? So we got to work to earn that hope, right? We have got to put boots in the ground. We got to put the calls in. We've got to put the pressure on. Doesn't mean you're going to win every time, but you certainly are going to win more often if you try than if you don't try.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Hey, you want to close this out?
I sure will. It's been great tonight being on here with you, Aaron.
Appreciate you.
And it's been great with our guest tonight. I mean, I just always learn so much when she's on here. So I just want to say that Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project and the Commonwealth Alliance for Voter Engagement, known as CAVE. And we are also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Progress Kentucky's goal is always to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. Please join us next week. Our 203 episode will be joined by someone great. Probably. No, it's always someone great on here. Production of next week is going to be episode 204. Am I correct, Aaron, or am I just all over the place?
No, you're right. This is episode 203. Next week's 204.
Okay. Well, 204. We rolling, aren't we? Production of episode 203 was by our very, very own wonderful, beautiful, intelligent, and just all out gorgeous Annabel Nagel. Nate Orshan wrote and performed our theme song. You can find more songs that he has composed at natosongs.com. That's NATO songs.com. Head over there right after this to listen to some of his music. You will not be disappointed. And if you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook or YouTube, audio podcast and our show notes are always available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and just wherever you get your podcast. If you do listen to the pod, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you may be listening. Logo and some graphic content provided by Couchfire Media. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching, and we'll see you at the same time next week.